Hello, and welcome to the It's Pronounced podcast, The Rebirth. We haven't done a podcast in a couple of years, but I'm here with my friend Peter, and we are going to talk about some Indians issues that are kind of topical, are kind of just on our minds, and it's going to be a free-flowing conversation. And let's get started. So, Peter, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a nice morning here in Turkey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice early evening here in Korea. So we are both Indians baseball fans living abroad. I'm in Korea, you're in Turkey. We are nowhere near Cleveland, Ohio.
This is true.
Anyway, so something that I've wanted to talk about with someone for a long time, and there's not many Indians fans here in Korea, although baseball is big, and we might get to that. The 2016 World Series. Just to start, where were you during Game 7? Where were you?
I was in my friend's apartment. I was staying there at the time, and I watched the whole thing. I got up at, let's see, if it started at 8, I started at 3 a.m.
Whew,
and
more of a warrior than I am.
stayed up through the night. Yeah, well, it's Game 7. I mean, I think I watched at least most of all of the games, but it was like 3 a.m. till 7 a.m., I think, is when I watched the games.
I mean, Game 7, I'd have been there anyway, but like the fact that you got up at 3 a.m. deserves some respect for that, yeah. It was like, it started at 8 p.m. Eastern, so it was like 9 a.m. here. Oh, man. It ended during my walk to work. I'll put it that way.
I wasn't quite there yet.
Oh, my God. How did you feel? Obviously not good, but how did you feel at the end of Game 7?
Well, I mean, yes. Not good is a good answer. Being up, 3-1, and even with Rajai Davis's, was it 8th inning, 2-run home run?
Oh, that home run! Home run!
Man, I was like, I went from feeling, oh crap, this isn't good. I don't remember the.
We were losing. It was bad. It was bad. We were losing.
Like 5 runs? Was it 5 runs?
It was bad. Whatever it was, It was just we had no offense, no pitching. It was just like we were on life support the whole game, and then Rajai Davis came in.
Yeah, so we had like a very, very, very small, no hope at all kind of situation. Then Rajai Davis cranks one, and all of a sudden it's tied, and it's like, yes, we have a chance. And then, oh no, we don't. We lost.
Man,
so.
Oh man, like I'm an adult. I'm in my 30s now. God, that hurts to say, but you're older than me, so it's okay. But I don't get that involved in sports anymore. You know, like I don't. Like, sports are a big part of my life, but I don't get, like, live or die on sports anymore because there's bigger things in life. You know, life goes on. And I gotta say, I didn't mean to get that invested in the 2016 Indians World Series run, but after they lost, I couldn't look at baseball for another, 6 months. I couldn't even talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here. I rarely ever watch any games, as I was talking to you about, because I'd have to stay up until 4 or 5 a.m.
I've got the perfect time. I got the morning. I got MLB TV. I can just watch it on my TV at 9 in the morning. It's perfect timing for me, honestly.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, I will always support the Indians in a playoff run over the Browns, the Cavs, all those guys. I'm more of a baseball person.
Of course,
so
that's why you're here. That's why you're here.
Of course. But yeah, I mean, it was rough, man. I mean, Rajai Davis cranking the home run, that made it more exciting, and that's the good side, but it was more depressing in the long run too.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm bringing this up is because we don't really talk about it. For a lot of reasons, in that there's no GOAT. There's no, who do we blame for this? There's no one to blame. The team had injuries. They had a lot of circumstances going on, and they played their absolute best, and they just came up against a better team and ended up losing in 7. I don't think the 3-1 narrative is even legitimate at all, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't know. If you're playing any solid, and I'm a game player too. I love board games and strategy and things like that. You can always look back and say, "Oh, I should have done that. I should have done that."
Well, let me ask
as the manager,
well, let me
coaching
ask you.
staff.
what should the Indians have done differently?
Again, not being an expert on these things,
Doesn't
but
matter.
I would have. Yes, exactly. But I would have let Kluber pitch Game 7.
He did pitch Game
And
7.
did he pitch? Oh, I thought it was Tomlin. Didn't Tomlin pitch game? Or he's
He
6?
Game 6. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I would have, because Kluber pitched. He pitched three games in the World Series, right?
Of course, he pitched 3 games in. He pitched on short rest in the ALCS and 2 games on short rest in the World Series. Like he was the warrior. I'm surprised he isn't like self-destructed at this point. Honestly,
Okay, but having pitched 3 games, he won 2 of them and lost 1, right?
yes. Yeah, because the Indians lost Game 1. Correct. Yeah, they lost.
I don't remember.
They lost Game 1, won Game 2, won Game 3, won Game 4.
So Kluber basically went 1 and 2 in the series, right?
Yeah, and again, that's a deciding factor.
That's what I'm talking about in terms of rethinking old decisions. I mean, again, if this was the 1920s, 1930s, whatever, like that's not a big issue. But the way guys work themselves and use their arms, and we could almost say abuse their arms in situations
Definitely
like that,
abuse their arms.
I think
Definitely.
I think they could have. I think they could have gone a better route than to use him 3 games. I remember thinking that. I forgot he had pitched Game 7, but yeah, it's those three games, same series. They're putting all their faith in him, and I mean that's rough on a guy with a very short rested arm.
Exactly, but I mean, with the injuries to Carrasco, and you know I love Carrasco. With the injuries to Carrasco, the injuries to Salazar, and we can talk about Salazar in a bit. Like, what are they supposed to do? I mean, they pulled up a guy from Double A to start in the ALCS because they were so shorthanded. The way I describe the World Series to people is it feels like a horror movie where the Cubs are this like Mr. Jingles kind of person, and you know what I'm referring to there. And the Indians had a gun and just ran out of bullets. They're just like at the end, they're just like click, click, click. You know, it just feels like.
Oh yeah, there's nothing.
Who can you blame?
There's nothing to do about injuries and gaps along the way. I mean, you can't do anything without Carrasco and Salazar. Just try and compensate as best as you can. It's just,
Yeah.
I think they could have gone with someone else, give it a shot, but I mean, it's Kluber.
It's Game 7 of the World Series. You got to lay it all out there. You have to.
Yeah. Yep. It's true, and I'm talking like as if we had lots of other opportunities and chances of other people to use in that situation.
There was no like I
No.
agree with you, but there's nobody. There's no one out there. There's who can you go with? Like Bauer's got a messed up hand, and there's Tomlin.
Just throw a position player in there. That'll work.
That'll
right?
work there, perfect. Throw Old Man Toad out there, right? Anyway.
That's right. Toad, Mario.
I this past offseason, I really wanted to write an article about how Joe Madden was the chief architect of almost blowing the World Series. Like, I love Joe Madden. I don't know if you know Joe Madden.
Yeah.
I love Joe Madden. But he was terrible in the World Series. It was awful.
In what way?
Okay, so in Game 1, he started Jorge Soler in right field, even though he was doing awful at the plate and awful in the field because he wanted to mix it up. I don't know. Maybe, like, I know Joe thinks outside the box, but maybe the World Series is not the time to mix it up, especially when you have Jason Hayward, who, again, wasn't hitting super well, but he's a Gold Glove right fielder. At the worst case scenario, you're going to have a Gold Glove right fielder in the field. Like, that was a mistake. And to emphasize the fact that it was a mistake, Jorge Soler never played another out in the whole series. Like, he was just like, oh, that was a mistake. I'm done. Bye. And then running Chapman out there, especially like, in Game 6, I was thinking, before the whole drama of Game 7 happened, I was like, why is Chapman out here? It's like a 5-run game. I'm not looking up the stats. It could be more, it could be less. It was a decided game. Why is Chapman out here for 2 innings in Game 6? Like, why can't you put someone else in there? I don't understand. And then it came in to Game 7. It comes down to Chapman, and you and I know damn well what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's got to be on Madden's shoulders, right?
You'd think, yeah. Like I'm thinking, just using people in the right spots, you know?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that seemed like
Like, did Chapman need to be in there with like a 5 or 4 run lead? No, he didn't. You need to be like, I got to think about Game 7, which is going to happen for sure. Let's go ahead and do that.
on the Indian side, wouldn't that be more of like an Otero kind of situation?
Exactly. Like Otero's terrible. You know, like Tito Francona, who we're gonna talk about. I love Terry Francona, and we can talk about that in like 5 minutes. I gotta get through.
Oh, I know you do, and you will.
I gotta get through the World Series topic here, but you can't. You have to go with your guys, but when you don't have to go with your guys, you have to go with someone else. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I just want to talk about the Rajai Davis home run, and if you caught the highlights of the last Red Sox game, they put Rajai Davis in the late innings, and Jay Bruce had to step out of the box because the fans gave him a standing ovation. And
so this was in Cleveland.
Yeah, it was in Cleveland, and the fans gave him a standing ovation. A Boston player. You know, I know he just got traded to Boston, but still, a Boston player getting a standing ovation in Cleveland is just that home run. Like, when people want to talk to me about the World Series, this is my standard comeback. I say, yeah, that World Series was great. I am just so glad that after the Davis home run, Manfred stepped in and was like, you know what, this series has been so good, we're just going to call it a tie. Both of you can have the championship. That's my standard go-to line because I was literally crushed by the outcome.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Like, coming back to tying the game made it all the more crushing when we actually ended up losing it, like we expected to in the first place.
We expected to lose, and then like the whole postseason was like, oh, we're screwed. We don't have our best pitchers. Our offense isn't that good, and we won against Boston, and we won. Like, we went up 3-0 against Toronto. And even then, your brother was messaging me like, oh, we're going to lose it. We're going to blow a 3-0 lead because we don't have anything in the tank. And I was like, yeah, it's true. We might, you know. But we won. And then we got to the World Series and we got up 3-1. And even then, again, this is why the narrative is so bad. Because even then, ask any Indians fan. You're up 3-1. Do you think we're really favored to win? It's like we're just praying for that fourth win. Because we're lucky to be here as we are.
But isn't that all like the irony of Cleveland sports in 2016 with the Cavs and the Indians? Like, we got the retribution. We paid for it, you know, for our NBA victory.
No, I don't think so. I think that the 2016 victory was like, and I don't want this to turn into an NBA podcast, but I think it was like regression to the mean in a way. It was like, you've had so much bad luck. Okay, have a Kyrie Irving 3-pointer. Go ahead, have it, you know?
Right. I'm just saying it balanced out.
It did. No. And 2016 feels really weird to me because there's no one to blame. No one did anything wrong. You know?
Injuries,
but you can't blame, like, you can't be like, the injuries. That's the curse.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not how it works. So, like, it's just like, it felt like a horror movie being on the side of the hero that ends in a tragedy, basically. That's how it felt. And
this is how it always feels. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but if you're on the losing side. But have you followed baseball this year? Like, do you know how good the Dodgers are this year?
I know they're more than 50 games over 500, right?
Oh, they're disgustingly like they won 90 games yesterday, and they're the only team above 80 wins. Like, holy crap, they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
I will put it right now, and if I'm wrong, I'm not going to make a bet because I might be wrong. They will not be in the World Series.
I would guess the same thing, actually.
They're not going to. It's going to be. Like, baseball playoffs are such a crapshoot. It's not worth getting like 120 wins. It's not worth it. Like, it doesn't matter. You can have 100. You can have the Dodgers, but would you, if you had $1 million in the bank and you had the 120 win Dodgers against the 89 win Marlins. Would you bet $1 million against the Marlins in a 7-game series? I hope not.
No, because I know what the Marlins can do in a 7-game series with not that many.
True point. But I mean, like, just any team in baseball, like just any team.
Yeah, no. I
It's a
understand.
crapshoot.
It's different. It's definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's part of why makes what makes baseball so great. I can understand if you're like, that's stupid. Why does the best team not win? But then you look at the NBA and like, I'm checking out of the NBA because the Warriors are so good. I don't even care anymore. You know, it's just like they're gonna win.
I never cared.
Like the Warriors are gonna win the next 5 championships. Who cares? Who cares?
Well, the thing about baseball is too that there's, I mean, on the pitching side of it, there's a different pitcher starting every game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 5 games in a row you'll have different pitchers, so that tremendously throws off the odds. Whereas this is why it doesn't make sense to me. In basketball, it's the same lineup, the same defense, basically every game of the series. Football, it's the same. You know, this is
The
against
same
injuries
players,
and everything.
right?
Same players. So it's like it doesn't make all that much sense. But when you have to use a rotation, then that kind of puts a microscope over the depth of your team. And if there's a hole there, if there's a gap, then it's going to show.
Exactly.
So that's why I find baseball a lot more interesting in that respect.
Yeah, like you have to like baseball is a team sport played by individuals, and so that's why you see like actually the Indians won Game 1 last year. That was Roberto Perez hitting 2 home runs. My history is messed up. I'm not doing research. The Indians they won Game 1, lost Game 2, won Game 3, won Game 4. That's what happened. But anyway, you saw. I mean, like, but again, in Game 1, you have Roberto Perez, a guy you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn to bury it, to borrow an old expression, hitting 2 home runs in Game 1 of the World Series. Like that was a free win the Indians did not deserve, 100%.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, I don't know how well he's doing this year,
He's
but
terrible,
I remember being
terrible.
very depressed about how he was hitting last year.
And I wrote an article earlier this year about how you can look at Yan Gomes not having a bat anymore. Fair. You can look at Roberto Perez not having a bat ever. Fair. But they have Francisco Mejia in the minors, and they're just like, we're not going to make a trade for a catcher because we got this guy who's like 21. He's going to be here in the future.
But they were last year. They were going to make a trade and
I'm glad they didn't because they traded Mejia.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is they were going to get what's his face from the Brewers or whatever. Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, don't do that. I've seen Mejia play. He's on like what was it, like a 50-game hitting streak?
Oh my God,
in the
it was
minor?
like Joe DiMaggio-esque, right?
I was like, this could be the curse of the Bambino for Cleveland before he gets to the majors. Like, don't trade this guy away. Come on.
Like when Indians fans hate on Lucroy, I'm just like, no, you should cheer that guy. Thank God he vetoed that trade. Thank goodness he vetoed that trade because what a bad trade.
It was probably mercy. It was probably mercy towards Cleveland, honestly.
What a good no, it was selfishness on his part, but what a great veto that was, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to this year. The Indians, okay, we've established you understand. I love Francona. What do you think of Francona?
Well, again, this year's I've been in Turkey the whole time. I haven't gotten to see as many games last year. I mean, and in years past, he just has a real knowledge for the game that his predecessors didn't seem to have. Like, I mean, especially with the budget being lower than it was in the '90s.
Absolutely.
You know, Mike Hargrove could do basically whatever he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Francona he just seems to have a really good mind for how to use people in key spots and I mean, it's just and last year too. Like, again, maybe he's doing this year, but like switching up the order all the time. Like, he's not afraid to experiment and be creative, especially if he thinks he's going to use it to his advantage. So I'm definitely a fan of Francona, and I hope he sticks around, although I know he has health problems, which are probably going to limit his tenure in the majors.
Yeah.
But
Unfortunately. So let's look at why he left Boston in 2012, I believe. It was because the whole chicken and beer scandal, right? Is what we're going to call it. And it was he's a player's manager for sure. And I'm pretty sure you didn't see it, actually, knowing what you know, but before the Royals series last weekend, they played a doubleheader in Minnesota, And going into Kansas City, he was like, everyone, I want you to report 2 hours later than normal. And then everyone was like, oh, okay. Normally they report at like 2. He was like, let's report at 4. And they come in to do batting practice. He's like, no batting practice. We're going to do pop a shot, and we got a DJ. We're going to party for a couple hours. Let's party it up. And they went out and won like 9-1, you know? When it comes to Boston, you have players who are going to get paid, you know, those $100 million contracts. And you got players like John Lackey. You got players like, I don't know who else on that team at this point. But you got players who begin to think, I'm a stud, I'm a star, I'm bigger than the organization. And they're like, yeah, I'm not pitching today. I'm going to go drink some beer and eat chicken. In a Terry Francona clubhouse, I can understand that. But in Cleveland, you're not going to have those players.
Right.
You know? You're not going to have anyone be like, I'm making $120 million. I don't need to know what's going on. You're not going to have that.
Yeah.
And so, like, having a loose and free clubhouse is really great for this, like, I don't even want to say small market. It's more middle market now. Like, attendance is good. Attendance is pretty good. The Dolans are spending. We're more middle market right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's increased. I'm guessing that has something to do with our recent success.
Oh, of course it does. And that's, you know, like I was full on the train like 3 years ago when coming off of 2013 and Dolan was like, hey, we're going to spend, but it's not time to spend. And then, you know, now he's spending, and I can't criticize that. He's spending money everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? So, I think Tito is great for this team and this organization and this budget constraint like era. I think it's great. I think it's perfect. But again, going back to last World Series, I think what he did with Andrew Miller was perhaps one of the greatest managerial maneuvers of all time. Like,
explain that a little bit more.
Like,
what did he do that you?
Okay, so like especially in the ALCS, our rotation is decimated. We have Kluber, we have Bauer with his ruined hand. Remember him bleeding all over the place?
Oh yeah, was that?
Yeah.
With the drone, is that what happened?
So basically, if you take Bauer out, we have Kluber, Tomlin, and you know, like there's nobody. And especially in the ALCS, Francona, like he went to Miller in the 6th inning and was like, "You need to be our workhorse. Like we have a 2-1 lead or a 3-1 lead. You got to get us to the 9th. Here's 3 innings. Go." Just having the balls to do that is just like, I don't think Joe Madden would do that. And again, I respect Joe Madden. I think he's a good manager, but I don't think Joe Madden would go outside the box that much to be like, this is my best reliever who is used to being a closer. I'm going to be like, I need you in the 6th inning. Most guys would not do that.
Yeah, I see you there. Like that's what I was going back to saying about Francona and his creative use of people and like knowing how to get the most out of people is what I like about him.
Absolutely. It goes back to like 2013, Ryan Rayburn, a nobody who had a great 2013, a really bad 14, but then a really good 15, and now he's on some other team doing okay. And it's just like you see this year, Austin Jackson. By the way, his players fan weekend nickname is Ajax, which I love because that's my nickname. I was not an Austin Jackson fan before that jersey came out, and I was like, oh, all right, well, guess I'm on board with you, man. But no, the way he's managed Austin Jackson, be like, okay, you're better against lefties. I'm gonna play you exclusively against lefties that are not like elite. And it built up his confidence to where he's hitting like over 300, and it's like, how is this bench player doing this again for Francona? This is like a trend in Francona's career. He gets the best out of bench guys.
Yes, for sure. Like especially I remember last year, Brandon Geyer, man, he used that guy really well.
Yeah, and like he was bad start of this year because he was like, all right, well, you're gonna go in the same role, and it doesn't have that like same nurturing aspect to how Francona uses him. But after he got injured for a bit, he's been a lot better since then. He's been like, if we're against a lefty in the late innings and he puts in Geyer, I'm not, at least anymore, I'm not like, oh, God. No, I'd say that he's actually been pretty good recently.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, he comes through in the clutch. I mean, at least more often than a lot of people in the pinch hitter role.
Oh yeah, there's never a time where I'm gonna hate someone who gets on base. You know, whether he gets hit by a pitch or he walks, I'm not gonna hate someone for that.
Yeah, I do remember us arguing intensely about Yan Gomes or Carlos Santana when they were both possible catchers. I was like, come on, Gomes is so much more, but Santana, man, he gets on base and he forces a lot of pitches when he's in.
Santana definitely does that. I definitely like Santana for that. Like, the value of getting on base is so important, and just making the pitcher throw 4 pitches at the very minimum. It's so big.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah, especially when you have somebody out there who actually knows what they're doing. You want them to get through, pitch more pitches so you can get somebody more hittable back in the game.
Absolutely. Or just, and especially like for the postseason, it's such a big deal because, you're facing the same team 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and it's, if you can make them work and get into their bullpen, maybe they beat you in game 1. But then you see that guy again and again and again, and we saw what happened in game 7 after the Indians saw Chapman 3 times. I'm just saying,
Yeah. Hey, really quickly, I wanted to get back to Austin Jackson because this has been my question. Being out of the loop for a while, I'm thinking about the Indians center field, and I know that Zimmer has played and Austin Jackson has played. What has been happening with Tyler Naquin? Like, I know he's in AAA, but is he, like, what's going on there? Because I thought he was pretty decent last year. I mean, he had some defensive miscues and some problems, but I saw a lot of hope for him, especially I think it was on Facebook. I saw the 1-year anniversary of his inside the park home run. I was like, yeah,
his walk-off inside the park home run.
Exactly, yeah.
He just has gigantic holes in his swing, and if you look defensive metrics, he's not that good of a defender. Like, Bradley Zimmer is a good defender, and he basically just does what Naquin does better. And so, like, Naquin is a guy who's not a great fielder, not a great arm, and he has a big hole in his swing. And so if you're like, center field's locked up, like, Zimmer's there. Even if he's not hitting, his defense carries him. He's there. So center field's locked up. If you need a right fielder or a left fielder, do you really want a guy who has a big hole in his swing and can't throw the ball and isn't a good fielder? That's basically why. That's why when people got hurt this week, like a lot of people got hurt this week, you're seeing Yandy Diaz get called up because you might see Jose Ramirez in left field or right field this week, even though it's not his position, it's not his natural position. I'm going to use the term, he's a gamer. He does it. He goes out there and he does it. Like, Naquin just has gigantic holes in his swing, and we saw that in the postseason last year where the teams were like, oh, you can't hit the high fastball. Okay, high fastball, goodbye. That's the thing. I would expect to see Naquin traded next offseason, honestly. And not for a significant player, just kind of like for a low-A crapshoot. I think the Indians have...
Any idea how he's doing in AAA this year?
No, but I can check. Wait, no, I'm not going to check because my splash image is that. Anyway, he's doing okay. I think I last checked he was like hitting like 300, which sounds great, but he's not like a power hitter, so it's kind of like, okay.
All right.
I think September he'll get called up, so it's like a week away he'll get called up. We'll see him in September, and he'll have a chance to, like, this is your last chance, prove yourself, but I don't think he's on the radar. I really don't. He has too much of a hole in his swing. He was never on the radar. Like, even before last year, and I know your brother was really big on him. He told me a lot. He's like, I think Tyler Naquin's the best. But
he bet 296 last year.
He did. No, he did. He did. No, he did.
But I understand, like, holes in his swing, there's certain pitches he can't handle, and people are going to start taking advantage of that.
Exactly. It's just, he's just kind of like, he's a really good quadruple A player. That's basically, I think, what the Indians think of him, and I kind of agree. He's a like.
What about using him in a Brandon Guyer kind of role, like a pinch hitter, like coming up in
against righties?
Situation
Against righties, yeah, that's a good point. But we have Lonnie Chisenhall for that, who's better at everything. Like by metrics, he's a better defensive right fielder. He's a better hitter. Which is to Lonnie's credit, he's a better pitch taker. Because when he started, when he was a rookie, and even those first like 4 seasons, he didn't take a walk ever. But he's much better at that. So like it's just redundant. Like you're gonna go with Lonnie, who I don't know if he's a free agent. I don't think he is. He's arbitration, I think, but he's gonna be around for a while, and it's gonna be pretty cheap, and it's gonna be like a long-term kind of like platoon guy, which is fine. You don't want to trade for platoon guys, but to have a guy who comes up and is cheap and is kind of like a situational arbitration matchup lefty batter, it's fine. That's totally fine. And I actually wrote an article last year about, I was so surprised looking at the advanced metrics of Lonnie Chisenhall. He's a really good outfielder. Like he's really, really good.
Yeah, Lonnie, he's been solid the last few years. I've been impressed.
Yeah.
I remember listening to the radio on his was it 9 RBI game or 8 RBI game?
It was like a 9 RBI game. Yeah.
Yeah, that was incredible. By the way, just really quickly, I just wanted to look up Tyler Naquin's stats. He's batting .302 this year, 9 homers, 70 games, 258 at bats. So, yeah, solid enough. But I would be curious, yeah, like if he ended up spending a whole season in the majors, whether with the Indians or someone else, like if those quote unquote holes in his swing would be easily figured out by all the other pitchers, and he ended up hitting like 200 or something, just my curiosity, because I did have a lot of hope for him.
Yeah, I mean, so like as someone who's probably not super engaged with this iteration of the Indians, at least until October, because we're going to make it to October. If we don't, I might. We're going to make it to October. Please, God help us. We have like a good leading division. What do you think of the team as an outsider? Kind of an outsider.
They've been winning a lot recently. I know that they've had some injuries, but it seemed like that didn't really hold us back.
This week's been really bad. We lost Salazar, Miller, Kipnis. This whole week's been like a mash unit.
When's Brantley coming back?
Couple weeks.
So, but most of these injuries are
minor.
Minor.
Yeah.
Not season. Okay, they're the silver lining.
Yeah.
Again, yeah. Most of my information is from seeing scores and things. I did watch a bunch of games in June while I was off work, and a little bit in May, and they seemed pretty good. Like I noticed that they were hitting rather well at the time. It was nice to see at least Carrasco back. I don't know if I saw any Salazar games, and wasn't he down
Salazar
for a bit
was
too?
Off for like 4 months. Like he was just like, okay, dude, you're not good. We're gonna send you to the minors and rehab, or whatever that means. And he came back and it was really great, and then he got hurt again. So.
And I keep also keeping my ears perked up whenever I hear about Kluber, because I know he's got the record, or he's in the running for the record of the most games in a row with like double-digit strikeouts, which is like, all right, man. I mean, I like having that kind of a
that actually ended like 2 starts ago, but yeah, that was a big deal. That was a big deal. It was actually, I think the record was they were like going for was 8+ strikeouts, and it ended when he rolled his ankle and got hurt, but he was on pace to do it again. So unfortunately, but yeah, I mean. It's amazing. I remember in 2013 when the Indians, like Francona's first year, they made the playoffs. The whole Nick Swisher era. Kluber was kind of like a September call-up, and he was kind of this guy's gonna be a whatever, like a long relief guy, whatever. And I don't know what happened to Kluber, but he's amazing.
You know, what's funny about that, too, is we did the same thing in 97 with Jarrett Wright and Bartolo Colon, who's still pitching.
Big Sexy. He's in Minnesota now.
Yeah, he's like 44 or 43 or something.
He's timeless. We don't need an age. He's timeless. He's like Casablanca or Gone with the Wind or Wizard of Oz. He's
He's a
timeless.
classic.
He's timeless. He could
Classic part.
He could pitch till he's 60. Who cares, right?
Just it seems like the Indians find their aces in like the most crucial spot.
That's the thing. That's the next point, though. The Indians front office. We need to give it credit. The Indians front office is one of it's one of, if not the best front offices in all of sports.
Although I might have disagreed with you if the Francisco Mejia trade had gone through.
Exactly. Okay. Fair point.
But having not gone through, we can say, okay, all the decisions have worked out. We'll just leave it at that. The decisions have worked out, it seems, especially with the budget they've had, not just this year, but in years past when they couldn't afford to spend as much, or Dolan didn't want to dole out as much.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
Anyway, but okay, let's play devil's advocate here. You had a catcher last year who was batting like 190. You give up the farm for Lucroy, and he accepts the trade. You give up your hot catching prospect. And let's say Carrasco doesn't get hurt, which was not like an elbow or a knee or anything. He got hit on a line drive in the hand, it's just the flukest of injuries.
Yep.
So let's say you go in the postseason with Lucroy, Carrasco, maybe Salazar if you're gonna theory craft it, be like, okay, he's healthy too. And let's say that team goes against the Cubs and wins. Would you give up Mejia for a World Series championship?
Yeah, but it was never going to be a guarantee.
But I understand. But I'm just saying. If
I'm saying they have, possibly, but having the shot at one World Series with Lucroy or having Mejia in your system for a period of time, and this guy, like, this was all happening during his 50-game hit streak. Again, in the minors, 50 games. Like, what is it actually going to turn into? We don't know. But like the potential here, it just seemed like this guy could be better than just a great player. He could be an extremely good all-star kind of guy, So I was just very hesitant to see anybody part with him.
Absolutely.
Even though, yes, I know Gomes was struggling, and Perez, although like you said, he won Game 1 for us.
He did win Game 1 for us. Never forget 2 home runs, Game 1. No, but you have to understand, in saying that we're a good front office, like, you give up a prospect. I remember. And again, last spring and summer, I was in Europe. I was traveling. I had no internet. I was just totally disengaged with the Indians last summer. I remember people messaging me, like while I was walking across Spain or in the Netherlands, being like, the Indians are going to win the World Series this year. And it was just kind of this hype of like, we're a really good team. Like, we're a real good team. And so hitting the trade deadline and being like, okay, we're a good team. Our catcher is abysmal. Let's go ahead and sell the farm for a good catcher. Can you really fault the front office for that? I don't think so. Was the decision wrong? Yes. But can you really fault the front office for that decision? No. I don't think so.
Well, and we have to also give them credit for the other decision, giving up our other prospect, Clint Frazier, for Andrew Miller.
Oh, yes.
That was a 5-star deal.
Yes.
That was a 5-star deal.
The Yankees are happy. We're happy. Everyone's happy with that decision. Like, every time I see Frazier, and he's doing great for the Yankees, I'm just like, what could have been? And then I see Miller throw that nasty slider. I'm like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, it paid off. I think both teams were happy, like you said. So
it was a great deal for both teams. So, moving on. Trevor Bauer started this year really, really badly. I remember in May, there was some article published by the MLB beat reporter, and Bauer had like a 6.5 ERA, and he was like, I'm not a 6 ERA guy. I need to do better. and he kept having these like bumpy starts, and the Indians kept with him because what else can you do? And it turns out he's turned a corner. I don't want to say that because we've seen these hot streaks from him before, but since the All-Star break, he's been incredible.
Mm-hmm. I haven't tuned in. I haven't been able to, but has he really picked up?
Yes. Since I'm gonna look this up actually. Since the All-Star break, he has been incredible. Like this is gonna make your eyes pop. Actually, I need to fill time while I look for his splits. But no, like his last few starts, especially, he's just like since the All-Star break. It seems since his at his worst, at his absolute worst, he's been like a quality start, whatever. Okay, here you go. Since the All-Star break, he is 6-1 with a 3.28 ERA in 9 starts. He's won 6 out of his 9 starts. He's striking out 10 per 9 innings in those 9 starts.
That's solid. I'll give him credit.
As a 3 or 4 starter, that's incredible, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see he's coming around though, because the games I did watch just seemed like he was kind of fluky.
Yeah. It seems to me that he's the one guy that Francona, I don't want to say it, like, I don't know how else to put it, but he's the one guy Francona doesn't care about. It's kind of like, you want to throw 130 pitches? Go ahead, man. Get it. You go ahead. Save the bullpen some work, you know?
And how's Tomlin? Is he hurt right now too?
Yes, and I don't want to talk about Tomlin because I hate Tomlin.
Well, you liked him last year, didn't he? Win us game.
He won us
well
game
one of the
3.
games.
He won us game 3. I wrote the recap for that game, and if he won us game 6 and the World Series, I would be the proud owner of an authentic on-field Josh Tomlin jersey. Unfortunately, I instead own a Carlos Carrasco on-field jersey with the sad tears of what if.
Yeah.
Because Cookie is the linchpin. And do you know how Cookie got his nickname?
I do not.
As far, and I'm not looking this up. I'm going to recap it as best I could. So Chris Perez, which we all know well. Chris Perez came into the dugout after the Cliff Lee trade. And he saw Cookie Carrasco eating cookies. And he called him Cookie. And that's where it came from. He's like, hey,
right.
He's like, hey, Cookie. And it just
Cookie.
It just has some alliteration with his name, and I just I remember back in 2014 before I first came to Korea. He had washed out as a starter, and he was in AAA for most of the summer, and he came back in late August to be a reliever, and through late August into the end of the season, he had like under 1 ERA. And I was on this train of like, I know Carlos Carrasco is a head case. I get it. But maybe he could be our closer. And people called me crazy. And then at the end of September, they were putting back in the rotation. And I was like, oh, God, no rotation, please. God, no, he's going to be awful. And he was even better. And since then, he's been amazing. So
good. That's encouraging because I remember we really needed him last year and this time of the season.
I will say right now, publicly, if Carlos Carrasco did not break his hand on a stupid line drive last September, we would have won the World Series. I can't prove it. I can't theory craft it, but yes, I'll say that.
Cleveland is the home of woulda, shoulda, coulda, but
it's true.
Yes.
Oh, not anymore. I have to say, the fact that the Cavs won the championship last year made such a big difference. Oh my God, how awful would it have been to lose Game 7 in the NBA Finals and then lose the way the Indians did? Oh my God, it would have been awful.
Yeah, but this is like par for the course for Cleveland
But
fans. They're pretty used to.
that would have been especially awful. Like, oh my
Yeah, it's like
god.
how do you one up your atrociousness or
Right.
your
Like
you know?
how do you keep getting worse? So the only like I was destroyed by the Indians losing, but the fact that the Cavs won kind of made it like I can't have that like monkey on my shoulder of like, oh my god, the Cleveland can't win a championship. Nah, it was gone. That was gone.
Yeah. It was nice to see, even though I'm not really a Cavs fan in the big
Of
picture.
course,
It's
of
like,
course.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Cleveland can celebrate.
Yeah.
Although I will say, there was a period in my life where I was actively rooting against the Cavs.
I know that damn well. I know that.
So that the Indians or the Browns could be the ones to break the sad streak.
I didn't have this in my list of planned topics, but can we please talk about how the Browns are the worst franchise in all of professional sports?
Although they're 2-0 in the preseason.
I don't care. No qualifications. I don't care. The Browns are the worst managed organization in sports.
That's probably it. I mean, like you have Terry Francona being like one of the best managers of era of sports, and on the other hand, the Browns, their front office, everybody involved with managing, coaching the team, has just done a crappy job.
Awful job. Like just
a really shitty job.
And you know, not to get too into the Browns, the coach is Hugh Jackson. I like Hugh Jackson. I think Hugh Jackson is a good coach. I just think like management in terms of like draft decisions and everything else is just awful.
Yeah, well, that's one of those other situations. I will probably be a fan of the Browns until I die. Not like a huge like go to every game kind of fan, but I'm gonna stick with them just because I always have. Grew up with it, so it's for me. It's gonna always be the Indians and the Browns. Although the Indians will have the edge.
Yeah,
of course.
Of course. Yeah. So I want to ask you: have you heard about like players? I guess it's called Players Weekend. Have you heard about it? Where they have their nicknames on their back. So the players have their nicknames on their back this weekend, and obviously we got the Indians players like Cookie. We got again when I first heard about it, I woke up one morning and I checked like the baseball headlines and I saw these and I took one look at the jerseys and I was like, oh my god, I've only bought one authentic jersey in my life. I need a Cookie jersey. So I bought that. And then I saw that Austin Jackson was going by Ajax, which is, as you know, my nickname. And I was like, let's buy a jersey of that. So I have that coming to me in Korea, too. But there are some really good nicknames out there. Hold on. Best player nicknames.
This is for all of the MLB or just Cleveland?
Everyone. It's because of the Little League World Series this weekend. So like there are some really, really, really good nicknames. There are some bad nicknames. There are some players who are just like, yeah, that's a really good idea. I just want my last name. Like, this is not in my top 10, but Aaron Judge. Have you heard of Aaron Judge?
Mm-hmm.
His nickname is All Rise. Which is amazing.
That's good.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
The best nickname, however, in my opinion, is the backup catcher. I think he's a backup. Maybe he's a starter for the Oakland Athletics. Josh Flegley. His nickname is PTBNL. Player to be named later. He's like, because if I'm traded, I'm the player to be named later.
Exactly. That's great. Wait, did they come up with their own nickname?
Oh, yeah. So for the Dodgers, you know, we've talked about how good they are. They have Corey Seager, who is like their young stud, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
On the Mariners, we have Kyle Seager, and his nickname is Corey's brother, which is tremendous.
Nice.
I'm not quite sure why Bronson Arroyo is free love, and I'm a little uncomfortable with that concept, but go ahead, sure.
Probably because, like you said, they picked their own nicknames. So
He like if you look at Bronson Arroyo, he's like 40 years old. You're like, all right, free love, I got you. Okay, 10-foot pole.
or else he's just looking for some groupies.
Yeah. For the Orioles, Wellington Castillo is his nickname is Beef.
Okay.
Beef Wellington. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really like Carl Edwards Jr. for the Cubs. His nickname is Carl's Jr. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that.
There are Carl's Juniors here in Turkey. So
They're not Hardys? They're not Hardys?
Nope, Carl's Jr.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, you got Carl's Jr. I like that one. That was a good one. I'm not a fan of Lindor. His nickname is Mr. Smile. No.
Okay.
No, it's the Kid. Sorry. It should be the Kid. Jay Bruce is Bruce.
You know what? I think I have seen a couple of these jerseys like on random pictures on Facebook.
Yeah.
So.
Andrew Miller's is really good, and it's a shame we're not going to see it this weekend because it's Miller time.
Yeah, that's perfect.
It just fits into the marketing promotion scheme. It's perfect. Miller time. It's Miller time. You know.
It's Miller time. Yeah.
I'm not.
I love it.
I'm not saying Miller is good beer. I'm not saying that at all. Although Miller High Life is kind of a sneaky good beer, but you know.
Sneaky good, huh?
It's not. For being a cheap bottom of the barrel beer, it's pretty good. My favorite nickname, though, and I'm gonna go Korean on you here. So, one of my favorite players, as you know, is Shin-Soo Choo.
Choo.
Which, in Korea, if you follow his Korean name, is Chu Shin-Soo. But that's not relevant to the story. I just want to put that out there. When he was traded to the Reds, the season after that, he was there for a season and a half. When he was there, the full season he was there, he started off really, really, really well. Like, super strong. And Joey Votto, who is a Hall of Famer in waiting, basically, he was trailing Chu, and he went to Chu, and he's like, hey, I feel like I'm chasing you. And Chu was like, oh, what? And Votto was like, do you know horse racing? And she was like, yeah. We have horse racing in Korea. And Votto was like, I feel like you're the rabbit. Like, the horses chase a rabbit. I feel like you're my rabbit. And she was like, oh, yeah. The toki. And that's Korean for rabbit. And so of all of the players' weekend jerseys, of all the nicknames, and then, of course, wait. Of course, later in the season, Votto became better than Chu because Votto is better than Chu. But even still, Votto has always said, I'm chasing Chu because I was chasing him that season. And so of their players' weekend names, Chu is Toki 1 and Votto is Toki 2. And I think that's just beautiful.
That's great. Toki. Yeah, it's fun when you have them like I'm with him or I'm with her. You know, like those old couple.
They're not even on the same team anymore. They're on like different teams. That's why it's great.
Yeah, exactly. It's just funny. They work together, coordinate. That's how you do it.
Yeah. I think Chu has proven himself to be a really, really good teammate. And I really wish he could have been in Cleveland longer. But again, we're not going to overpay people, so whatever.
Yeah. Especially with that Korean connection you have, that'd be fun to represent.
I mean, I do. Korean baseball is awful. I love Korean baseball, but it's awful. You know Andy Marte, right?
Mm-hmm.
He died last year. Do you know that?
Yep.
Yeah. So he was playing for Suwon, which is between where I'm at right now and Seoul. It's like the exact midpoint. And I learned that when I was living in Jeonju, which is way south of where I'm living now. And I was like, I got to go see Andy Marte. I have to go see this because it's Andy Marte. And he was hitting like 350. He was just destroying Korean baseball. and I went and saw him, and he was okay. He didn't do anything bad. But his team was an expansion team, and oh my god, were they so bad. Like, they were... If you put them against a good single A team, I'd bet on the single A team. They were bad. It was bad.
Oh man.
Like, I think it's a 130 game season. I think they lost like 90 games. It was bad.
That's pretty awful.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
The Browns equivalent.
I think, honestly, and I hate the Browns, I think it's worse than the Browns. They were, like, it was... I've seen other Korean baseball. Like, Korean baseball among the good teams is, like, between really good AA and average AAA. That's, like, where they want to be, which is fine. That's entertaining baseball, for sure. But... man, the KT Wiz that year were bad. They were bad. What's baseball like in Turkey? I'm curious.
There is no baseball in Turkey.
That's sad.
Although I will say people do buy bats in case they get into fights on the street.
I'm picturing, like, not a sporting goods section, but like a street fight section in the stores.
Yeah, it's like the baseball section is just a bat. That's all. keep them in your car in case somebody attacks you or runs into your behind.
Hey, baseball bats are very useful. Let's be clear. Anyway,
They can come in handy.
Anyway, we're about to reach the hour mark, and this has been a really good podcast. So let's call it here. Let's be like, okay, we've done enough. Have you had
The
fun,
first of
Peter?
many.
Have you had fun?
I've had enjoyed it, yes.
Yes, we're gonna do this again. We're gonna get Bobbert in here for sure.
Fish! Hopefully he won't fall asleep and drool on someone while he's watching.
We gotta get Jose in here too for that. All in the reason. How many jokes can we make?
Lots of Bobbert jokes and Jose jokes.
Oh, of course. Anyway, it's been real good talking to you. I think this is the first time we've talked since I took you to the airport. In terms of, like, actually talking.
Yes. It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
What, was that 3 years ago?
No, it was like 18 months ago.
You took me to the airport?